All right, Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. I'd like to say double honors to my teachers, the men whom I've learned this truth from, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. And I'd also like to say shalom and salutations to the elect that's out there preaching this word in truth and sincerity. I'm the brother Shaquat, and I'm one of the brothers from the branch of Great Millstone, Montreal. And I'm back with another lesson. And this lesson will be entitled "Dealings Among One Another." Right. And I'm just gonna go into a couple laws and customs that we the Israelites had in the ancient world. Right. But these laws that the Lord gave to us were pretty much how we should pretty much govern ourselves amongst and deal how we deal with each other. And this yields life. These laws that the Lord gave us to keep. These laws they yield life, man. Because they keep order, they keep things running peacefully, right? So, without further ado, I'm gonna start here in the book of Exodus 22 and verse 25. Right, and this is contrary to Esau Edom's society, because Esau Edom's society, um, there's no honor, right? It's pretty much each and every man for himself, right? There's a lack of compassion and a lack of care for one another, really, right? You may have some people that have those traits within themselves naturally, but for the most part, this society doesn't promote, you know, promote care for one another. It's pretty much it's what's the word, individualistic, if I pronounce that the right way. Every man for himself, man. And that's not right, that's wicked, right? And even you can see now some things I could see, some simple things that I could see that prove that this is a individualistic society is something as simple as greetings, saying good morning or hello to a stranger that you don't know. Nobody does that. People are avoiding people in this society, right? Why? Because Esau Edom pretty much cultivated this society to be like that. For everybody to be individualistic and only care about themselves. And not have compassion and care, genuine care for one another, right? But in the kingdom of heaven, guess what? These things are coming back. That's why the scriptures pretty much encourage us to seek the old paths, man, because this is the right way. So this is Exodus 22 and verse 25. It says, "If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury." Right. And what is usury? Usury, in the Google definition, it says usury is the legal or unethical practice of lending money at unreasonable high interest rates. Right. So if you lend money to somebody that's poor, you know, you're not supposed to, that's your brother. This is dealing with a fellow Israelite brother. If you lend money to somebody in need, and they don't really have that, the leeway to give you back that money, to pay you back that money right away or not fast enough, you shouldn't give or put an unreasonably high interest on the money that you loaned him. Why? Because that's a burden to him. That's a burden to him. You know, it says, so you're pretty much looking out for him. This law is telling you, okay, don't worry about it. You're looking out for your brother, man. You know, you're making things a bit easier for him. You are making things easier for him. All right. It says, continuing on with the definition of usury, it says, um, It says often exceeding the maximum rate allowed by law. It is characterized by predatory lending that exploits borrowers' financial desperation. Right. So you're not supposed to. If you if you lay usury upon your brother, you're exploiting him, and that's what Esau does, man. With the with the interest rates that he puts upon people, but that's not how it's supposed to be, right? You're exploiting him. You would be exploiting that individual, right? It says, and the Lord doesn't like that. It says synonyms include loan sharking, extortion, racketeering, right? And in historical context, simply interest, man. Right? So yeah, man, that this law, you're not supposed to um yeah, you're not supposed to pretty much lay usury or put interest, high interest, unreasonable amount of interest upon your brother if you lend him money, right? And guess what? There's also another law that deals with forgetting the debt. I believe it was after 7 years, but Lord willing, matter of fact, let me see. Hmm. Salaki, but after a particular amount of time, but Lord willing, I'm going to go into another lesson on that. But after a particular amount of time, that debt could be forgiven and fall off, right? So let's go. Let's go from there. Matter of fact, let's keep going. Uh, yeah, let's keep going. This is Exodus 22 and verse 25, and it says, mm, Salaki. Let me look up some precepts I have here. Yeah, matter of fact, let me get this real quick. In the book of Leviticus 25 and verse 35 in the NLT, it says, if one of your fellow Israelites falls into poverty and cannot support himself, support him as you would a foreigner or a temporary resident, and allow him to live with you. Do not charge interest or make a profit at his expense, right? Instead, show your fear of the Most High by letting him live with you as your relative, man. Yeah, man. So you're supposed to pretty much treat that brother that's down bad at that moment, you know, as a kin folk. You know, you're supposed to treat him as a kinfolk, as blood, right? And really, you're supposed to treat him like you would yourself, man, right? And that's one of the things that the Yahweh Bashmasha is pleased with, and that's in this time. That's how you get to the kingdom. That's Matter of fact, yo, let me get it because that's one of my um. Yep. So this is Mark 12 and verse Let's see. What should I'm gonna start at 32. And the scribe said unto him, well, master, thou hast said the truth, for there is one power, and there is none other but he. And to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the soul, and with all the strength, and to love his neighbor as himself is more than all the whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. Right. So loving Yahweh Bashem, loving the Heavenly Father Yahweh with all your heart, might, and soul, man, and treating your brother as yourself and loving your neighbor as yourself is worth more than a whole bunch of burnt offerings and sacrifices, man. You know, because that's pretty much, and that's also what the law is pretty much summarized to. You know, loving Yahweh and loving your brother and treating your brother as yourself. Verse 34. And when Yahushua saw that he answered discreetly, he said unto him, thou art not far from the kingdom of the Most High. No man after that durst ask him any questions, right? So he's not far from the kingdom. Why? Because he had the right mindset. He understood, what the deal was. He understood the things that were important. He was in the right spirit to simplify it, man. And as we're reading here in Leviticus 25 and 35, you supporting, a fellow brother in his poverty, you doing it out of the kindness of your heart and not pretty much being in a rush to get that money back or being like, yo, now I'm gonna put interest on that, brother. 5%, 10%, 20% interest on that, brother. I'm sorry, bro. I gotta make my that's not the right spirit to be in. Right? The right spirit to be in is, okay, yo, brother, if you can pay that back, you pay that back. But if you can't, then it's all good. It's not that serious. And guess what? That the Lord might bless you, but that's the spirit you're supposed to be in, man. And that cultivates a healthy community or society or congregation in our case. That's right. It says, going back to Leviticus 25 and 36, it says, do not charge interest or make a profit at his expense. Instead, show your fear of the Most High by letting him live with you as your relative. Right? It says, remember, do not charge interest on money you lend him or make a profit on food you sell him. I am Yahweh, your power, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan and to be your power. Right? So let's go from there to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 22. Mm, 23, Deuteronomy 23 and 19. It says, thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that Yahweh thy power may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to do in the land whither thou goest to possess it. Right? So dealing with your brothers, your tribesmen, you shouldn't charge interest upon them. But guess what? You could charge interest upon these heathen because they're not the Lord's people. Right? The Lord doesn't care. There's just nothing but spittle, man. They're here for us. They're here to help us pretty much. They're here. They're adding on to us, man. So whatever they have is ours. Simply put, So in the Google, this is I put allowed amount of interest allowed in the Bible. It says the Bible generally prohibits charging interest, right? As we read and brought out precepts, it said to fellow believers in need, advocating for loans as acts of compassion rather than profit. That's right. So what we're doing, by us not pretty much charging usury upon our brothers is it's out of compassion, man. It's treating him like, he's yourself, right? Look, because if you were in that position, what would you want done unto you? Right? Oh man, that reminds me of another precept. Yeah, because that's what you have to put into consideration. If you were in that position, what would you, how would you want to be treated? How would you want that person to treat you? So that's how you would treat that person, right? That's why Yahushua said, forgive us our debt as we forgive our debtors, right? So you forgiving that debt, knowing that if you were in that position, you would want your debt forgiven. And man, this a precept. Let me look for Baba Kushar, and then I'll close off. Oh yeah, I got it. Matthew 18, Kahalo Yabashmasha. Yep. Matthew 18 and in verse. Yeah. Matthew 18 and verse 21. It says, Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Yahushua said unto him, I say unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times seven. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a king which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. For as much as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion and loosed him and forgave him the debt. But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. So his fellow servants saw what was done. They were very sore, and came and told unto their Lord all that was done. Right. It says, then his Lord after, right. So this man, after having his debt released and forgiven, somebody else that was in debt to him asked for pardon and said, Yo, forgive me, I'll pay it off. But he didn't have mercy and compassion. Which that's not the right spirit to be in. The right spirit to be in is, yo, I received forgiveness for my debt. I was released from my debt. Yo, don't worry about paying me. That's the mindset. That's what he should have done. He should have said, yo, don't worry about it. That's compassion, but he didn't have that compassion. It says, verse 32, then his Lord, after that, he had called him, said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt because thou desirest me. Should not thou also have had compassion on that fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? And his Lord was wroth and delivered him to the tormentors till he should pay all that was due unto him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if ye from your hearts forgive not every one his brother their trespass, man. So yeah, that's the point. You pretty much treat dealings among one another. You treat your brother the same way you would want to be treated if you were in the position that he was in, and vice versa, man. And that cultivates yields a good spirit, a good vibe, around each other, man. You know? Hey, so with that, I hope this lesson was edifying. Call hello, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone once again. And shalom and salutations to the elect.